the district schools are not performing well, the district hospitals are not performing well. If the DC could have some assistance in these areas and the DC could actually be, provided more energy, our lives would be much better, our quality of lives would be much better, our cities would be cleaner, our schools would be more functional, our healthcare would be better functional, our security system, the police, the DC has sweeping powers. But the IS system has been designed for India, which was 50, 60 years ago. Today our needs are much more. We need more number of people helping the government, and what we are trying to see over here, get young Indians to the government, is just trying to address that deficit of, thought power at the government.
Let me just start. This is a question of leadership capacity, where IAS is one stream, and it's a question of, do you increase that stream? Are there alternate streams that could be created? This potentially, by the way, is a 2-year solution, but it isn't at scale. I think that's the question he's asking. Are there any other platforms for younger folks to get more systematically involved in government over longer periods of time?
My belief is that we cannot be giving a district collector-like posts to experts and specialists. This is my belief, but this is my personal opinion. I mean, the kind of the job that a district magistrate or a district collector is supposed to do, that's a very non-specific and a generalist kind of a job. I don't think if an expert who has, a specialization in one of the jobs, he can head such positions. I'm not sure.
No, I think Faisal, he made a different point. He was talking about in terms of numbers. When for about 7 to 8 years, starting from about 92 to 2000, 2005, the recruitment was cut down drastically. There was this talk of government being lean and downsizing. But unfortunately, the downsizing was actually done only, it was more tokenism than anything else, where they cut down. The recruitment came down by half for the IAS. Like when I joined, it was 105. At some point, it was about 50 or 60. I believe they reverted back to the original numbers because there's been a huge demand from the states. But what you're suggesting is something more, and I don't think that is under consideration by the government. But having said that, I think a tectonic change that is going to happen probably from next or the year after that is the system of recruitment. I think that's also a huge barrier for a lot of us. I think a lot of people in this room would love to join the IAS, but the recruitment procedure, the time it takes and the kind of barriers that are there, you don't have the time to devote to that. I believe that the new system might be addressing that to some extent in terms of not giving too much emphasis on, these subjects and you mug it up and do well in the exams. I believe it's going to be a little different, and maybe the barriers to entry may be a little lower. But in terms of numbers, certainly I haven't heard of any proposal to increase the numbers.
Shikha, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's strange to find a vote for increasing IAS from outside. We're not really doing that. But the point is, again, IAS is not Indian bureaucracy totally. IAS is just a small segment of Indian bureaucracy. You have a whole set of people, and unless you address the entire system, it doesn't work. So it's like Lan Richard said, India is a flailing state. Flailing state that it has a terrific top, but the bottom is all. So great policies but no implementation. So I think we have to think of bureaucracy in a broader thing.
I think we have time.
Just adding to that, I think at the district level, you'll be surprised that there is a district education officer, there's a district health officer, there's a district forest officer, there's a Zilla Parishad head. So all these people are supposed to help the collector in discharging his duties. But often, I think what happens is that you get this creamy layer of really smart people joining the IAS, and then you have a set of his team, which is really, not the kind of support that he needs.
Then the cream withers away.
Well, we have time for one more question, and then I have one final one, if that's okay. Sorry, yeah.
Can everyone hear me? I used to be a banker, please don't judge me. My name is Varun Bhandari. I grew up mostly out of India, in Singapore and then in London. And I came back to do my MBA in India. One of the things which was struck me before my MBA, I had a chance to do an internship. And I really thought about whether it makes sense for me to go and work in some capacity with the government, if there's something like that available. But being a banker, I always think about efficiency and how delivery mechanisms are things, are we having the impact that we want to do? So now, the sense I get from this panel is that if you are a young, ambitious person wanting to come and work in the government, you need to moderate your expectations, you need to be more patient. But really, some people aren't just cut out for that. Some people are private sector oriented. They're very capable individuals nonetheless. Can they still come in government, or will they have a very short-lived career? And will this fade away?
This is a very good question. Who would want to take this on? I'm going to provide any choice. Do you want to start?
I think in government there is not much scope for radicals. Not much scope for radicals. Believe me, revolutions, you may be there with revolutionary ideas, but you will have to get fossilized with the system. They say that you get fossilized with
He
practice.
hasn't yet joined government.
They say that, I'm my bosses, in fact I'm here, I cannot speak too much about my bosses. But then yes, they say that, well, you come with revolutionary ideas, but then you turn out being just one of the kind.
I think the most successful examples of senior civil servants who have created impact are people who have been practical, who have not allowed best to be the enemy of the good. I think that's the single most important motto that I have learned. You know, it's much more important to take everybody along with you than to aim for the optimal policy solution, which is, you know, great in theory.
I think it's an excellent answer. It's in some ways rounds off this panel. Unless there's a woman here, we've had three questions from women. If there's a final question from a woman, you go ahead, please.
And I'm also going to break the trend because I'm a journalist. I actually wanted to, in that vein, what is something that you absolutely can't and won't be able to do in government, in the framework of this two-year fellowship, say? As a person who's part of this fellowship program, what is something that you must mentally reconcile yourself to in terms of personality or whatever it is that you absolutely will not be able to do in government in those 2 years?
I heard one answer, which is free radical, but rather much more patience, learn to work through the hierarchy, figure out whether there's a sponsor, and have impact. That's the starting answer that we've heard so far. Is there something to that you want to add?
Learn to nod more.
I would switch it around a little bit and say that you should think what is it that you could do in a 2-year period, see whether that's realistic, and then aim to get it done. Because, you know, otherwise the question is very context specific. But defining a goal for yourself and what you want to achieve, and, you know, testing with a few people who understand whether it's a realistic goal to have, and then achieving that is a better way to look at it.
Can I just add one last? I think the word impact is being used a lot, and having been in government for about 20 years, I think as part of a 2-year stint, I would also balance the impact with the experience. I mean, is it only impact that these youngsters are looking at, or is it experience, understanding government, in the process then looking at a future role in government? Because if we go with just this one-point agenda of impact, I think we might just be a little disappointed. You know, coming from a man who's been there for 20 years.
Does that answer your question? Which I'm sure is where you were getting at. Great. Well, wonderful. What I've taken away here is I really like this notion of framing it in the concept of governance as opposed to government. And I think I really want to appreciate all of you because you've been open, you've been very honest, and frankly, I feel great knowing that this country is in at least your 4 hands. There are many other hands, there are many other hands, but it's great to see the kind of leadership we have. I have one final question, slightly controversial one. We talk about governance, choices of policy or politics, and why did you pick the one that you did? Maybe we can start with you so I can pay you back for calling on. Sorry, you go ahead.
Policy or politics?
Yeah.
Huge barriers to politics. I mean, I wish there was a forum where we could discuss how youngsters get into politics. I mean, I would be in the audience.
No, I mean, absolutely. If you think that